Hey everyone, welcome back. This is John Coleman. Today we have with us, we have a special guest. We have Sherry Welliver, a Mercer pharmacist and one of the leading experts out there on these things called biosimilars in the marketplace. Hey Sherry, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Good, thanks for having me.
So Sherry, before we talk about our topic, which is biosimilars, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, right? Let them know a little bit more about you.
Well, I guess it's an interesting fact is I live in Minnesota, but I don't like snow, I don't like cold, and I definitely don't like mosquitoes. But for some reason, I'm still here. I guess I like to travel a lot, so that gets me out and about.
Oh, there you go. There you go. All right. So Sherry, a lot of talk has been in the marketplace about these things called biosimilars, right? So
Mhm.
candidly, why should employers care? Shouldn't this be something the PBMs really focus on and not employers necessarily?
Well, it's because there's potential of cost savings, especially with a top drug coming out as a biosimilar in 2023. But first, we probably need to decide and discuss what a biosimilar is. And so it's a type of biologic drug, and biologic drugs are very complex molecules and difficult to fully replicate. By a biologic that is highly similar to another biologic that is already FDA approved, sometimes called an innovator product. So they're very different than generic medications. Generic medications are really small molecules and are easy to copy and replicate. And the active ingredient of a generic is exactly the same as a brand. But biosimilars are not exact copies. They're actually highly similar, which is why they're called biosimilars. I think of a biosimilar, I've actually heard this analogy before. It's like a chocolate chip cookie recipe. There's a lot of different chocolate chip cookie recipes out there, and you can use different ingredients. But at the end of the day, when you make the recipe, you get a chocolate chip cookie.
Right.
Regardless of the slight differences in being just similar, there's still no clinically meaningful differences in purity, safety, or potency. The other thing is, generic, the term generic and biosimilar are often used interchangeably, and they really shouldn't because, like I've said, they're different drugs. The one thing about that makes them also different is a lot of times biosimilar manufacturers have rebates for their drugs where there are not rebates for traditional generics. And it's mostly because those biosimilar manufacturers want to stay competitive with the brands, and to keep that competition, they provide rebates.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that most people don't know when they think of biosimilars, right? The rebates are available, and that certainly could be an area of cost savings for plan sponsors, right?
Definitely, definitely. And also generics tend to come to market with about 80, eventually are 80 to 90% lower cost than the brands. And we've seen through the years that the biosimilars don't have quite as much cost savings, mostly up to about 40% at max right now. And it's a slow progression to get that savings. But while that savings potential compared to generics just isn't there quite yet for biosimilars, it's still quite meaningful. So if you think about these biologic drugs, they're thousands of dollars. So if you can save, a few percentage points up to 40%, that's been great. While we've seen the market, the biosimilars on the market for some time, most of the drugs that are available as biosimilars now are through the medical benefit because they're infused medications like Remicade and oncology drugs. However, one of the top selling specialty drugs through the pharmacy benefit is set to have several biosimilars launch in 2023. And that drug is Hemera. The Hemera is a biosimilar, was actually approved in 2016, but due to patent litigation, no biosimilars could launch until next year, 2023. And many of you may know this, but Hemera is the #1 selling drug in the US. In 2021, it had almost 21 billion in sales. And it's the top drug for most plan sponsors. And so this is big news because it'll be the first PBM or pharmacy benefit specialty biosimilar available. Well, there's definitely considerations for plan sponsors when you think about biosimilars. From an employer perspective, you want to make sure that your contract terms really address biosimilars from a contracting perspective and definition perspective, especially when you think about Hemera coming as a biosimilar. And if it's a plan sponsor's #1 drug, you want those claims to be included in guarantees for rebates and pricing discounts. There's also some considerations for prescribers and patients. In the past, there's been quite a bit of hesitancy to switch a member to a biosimilar if they're stable on that innovator product. But there's been now some biosimilars that have been interchangeable, and we know that Hemera is going to launch with some interchangeable brands. And also, one of the potential biosimilars that'll be launching could be in the same high cost concentration that most patients use right now for Hemera. 80% of the Hemera users use this high concentration. And we know that there's a biosimilar that will likely launch in that high concentration and will be interchangeable and also citrate free, which will help with the member uptake of that biosimilar. The other thing is around patient affordability. We know that a lot of these manufacturers offer coupons and copay card maximizers for specialty drugs. And that is, questions are, well, if I do a biosimilar, will I have a lower copayment? Will I have to pay anything? And from experience, we know that manufacturers, if they release a biosimilar and if they have copay assistance on their brand drugs, will likely have some sort of coupons or assistance with their biosimilars as well. There's also going to be a couple more biosimilars in the pipeline, Stelara and Enbrel to name a couple, and they're also in the same category as Hemera. They treat inflammatory condition. So the whole class may look different in a few years. This one again, Hemera, the reason why we're talking so much about the biosimilars is because this really is an emerging hot topic, because it will change quite a bit for Hemera, that #1 drug next year, especially because at least 7 biosimilars are already FDA approved next year to come on the market. And the first one should launch in January of 2023, with 6 more coming in third quarter. So with that, the sheer number of manufacturers launching products, we do think that the savings will come very quickly and earlier than they have in the past for plan sponsors for Hemera. So it all in all is a really good story because we think there's going to be competition out there, which will drive the cost of Hemera down. The biosimilar cost will drive it down, as well as the whole class as a whole will provide cost savings.
So Sherry, really, really quickly, right? So great update on the biosimilars and what's going on in the marketplace. As an employer, what steps should you really be doing to take advantage of the biosimilars? Or again, should you just leave it up to the PBMs to figure out their strategy?
No, I think one of the first steps that employers really need to do is take a look at their contract and ensure that the biosimilars are addressed in their contract and not silent or excluded. And then talk to your PBM about their strategy. I think employers really do need to educate themselves because, like I said, there's more biosimilars that'll be entering the market for high cost drugs in the future. And especially Hemera coming as a biosimilar will be very visible, likely see commercials, newspaper articles about it. So employers will likely have some of their members asking about it as well.
Very, very interesting, Sherry. So if there's an employer or maybe a prospect out there who wants to know more information, where can they go to actually reach you directly?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. You can just find me at my email address right there.
Well, Sherry, really, really appreciate all your time. And for all of you out there, we want to hear your feedback in terms of biosimilars and how it will impact your healthcare strategy going forward. As always, we encourage you to like the video, share, and until next time, thank you for joining, and thank you, Sherry.